Yeah, so so hi all, thanks for joining. And this is our third Remix India meetup, and we will do a meetup every second Tuesday of the month. And I have created a form if you would like to talk to at this meetup, and please fill out the form, and we will try to schedule it in the upcoming meetup. Okay, so let me introduce Arvind and Cameron. So Arvind is a full stack JavaScript developer with 4 years of experience in the tech industry. He's a currently tech lead at Anthem, a fintech startup. Apart from work, he's a recreational tennis player, likes to watch football, tennis, and he can speak Spanish also. That's a good thing. And today he will cover the resource routes in remix topic. And let me introduce to Cameron. And Cameron is a software engineer at GitHub. So he's passionate about building web apps, tools, games, and he often writes about web development, JavaScript remix, and other tech topics on his blog. And he has the blog is okay. So Cameron lives in USA, and when he isn't coding, then he loves to write code or go hiking, play board games. So today he will cover the how serverless saved money on my hitting bill topic. So I think as per schedule, who will go first? Other tech topics on is I think Cameron, you can go first.
Yeah, I think I'm up here. All right, give me a second to sort out the screen share. It's always troublesome to get all this stuff up and running. Okay. Okay, give me a good thumbs up or some indication. Okay, perfect. So thank you for that introduction. Good morning, good evening, everyone, wherever you are. I'll just kind of give, just for the sake of the recording, kind of a reintroduction. My name is Cameron McHenry. I am a software engineer at GitHub. And like I was just saying before this, I work on the new projects beta, which you can check out. GitHub's kind of known for being a Ruby focused company, but at least on my team, we use a lot of React. And I think that's a trend that's going to continue into the future. If you're interested in more stuff like this, kind of about Remix, JavaScript, fun stories, definitely follow me on Twitter there. Also check out my website. This talk that I'm giving is kind of based on a blog post that I wrote about a month ago. So you can kind of cheat and look ahead if you go there. Definitely if you're interested, give me a follow. So today I am going to talk about a story. I'm going to tell you a story about a web app that I wrote, a personal project in Remix. But before I kind of explain all of that, I need to give you a little bit of background information. So I live in Pennsylvania, which is certainly not the coldest of states, but I think by most people's standards is fairly cold, especially during the winter. So this is just an example from a few nights ago, and the temperatures look pretty low. They felt pretty low. So obviously this means that a big concern here every winter is figuring out how to actually heat your house. And there's a lot of ways that you could heat your house, and currently the only viable heating option for me is to use is by burning propane gas. And unfortunately, as you can see from the graph here, Currently, propane prices are at like a 5-year high. They've just really shot up recently. So this year, it was kind of on my mind, like, okay, I wanna save some money on my heating bill because otherwise I'm going to be paying a lot of money here for all of this propane. So this is kind of the mental flow that I was going through. So I wanna save money on my heating bill. That's my goal. And in order to do that, I need to use less propane. But in order to use less propane, I need to use less heat. And in order to use less heat, I need to know how to actually like insulate my house and use the heat that I do have more efficiently. And then in order to do that, I need to know how much heat is actually being used by my house. And the problem with that is that I can't directly measure how much heat I'm actually using. It would be great if there was a way to do that. But unfortunately, that's just kind of that's a hard, intangible thing to actually quantify. So unfortunately, the only thing that I am actually able to quantify is how much propane I have. Now, to make this a little bit worse or a little bit more inconvenient, my gas provider that actually provides the propane to me doesn't give me any real historical information about my usage. So I can't measure how much heat I need. Truly, the only thing I get at any moment in time is just how much propane I have. That's it. So one number, no historical information. And you might ask, like, okay, so big deal. Why is that a problem? Why should I care? And I think the problem is that it's hard to improve what isn't measured. If I don't know how much propane I'm using, if I don't know how much heat I'm using, it's hard to know if anything that I'm doing is actually having an effect. You know, does turning my heat down make it better? Does turning it up, does it make any difference? You know, yeah, does it matter? Is it worth it? So really, that was kind of the core question that I was trying to answer here. So with all of that in mind, I decided that I would build my own application that would let me track my gas usage to help me save money. So I wanted to build a web application that would let me fetch the current level of gas and then put it in a database somewhere. And then using that historical information, I could calculate the rate of consumption, and I could display all this in like a nice web interface with a cool dashboard. And, you know, you could say, well, this is kind of overkill, right? I could totally just put this in a spreadsheet and record it manually. And to that, I would say, you know, number one, I'm lazy, and that all sounds like a lot of work. And number two, I sort of wanted an excuse to build something with Remix. I wanted to kind of stretch it and see how much I could really do with it. So this was kind of perfect for that. So to actually get this idea done, of course, I need a web framework for interacting with the database and rendering all the pages, which obviously I'm using Remix for that. And I also needed a host. So I need somewhere to put my application and then make it available on the internet. And then also, just as crucial, I need some sort of tool that's going to allow me to scrape this data, because fortunately, there's no API for my gas provider. They just give me some HTML. So I was going to have to scrape that. And then last but definitely not least, I need somewhere to actually put all of this so that the data will persist. So of course, since I'm speaking at a Remix meetup, I chose to use Remix for my web framework. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that in other slides. But I just wanted to mention some of the other options I chose. So for my hosting, I used fly.io, which is a really great, easy and affordable host. There's a Remix template. So if you make a new Remix app, you just pick the fly.io option and you can deploy in like 60 seconds or something. And then for the scraping part of it, I'm using this server or using this service called Browserless, which is kind of like Puppeteer as a service. So I'm really using the Puppeteer library, but I'm using the Browserless service to essentially, I don't have to worry about trying to run Chrome locally on my server or anything. They can deal with all that for me. And that has I should say that has a free trial that was generous enough for this application, but it is generally a paid thing. And then finally, to store all of this, I decided to use our open source favorite tool, Supabase, which I don't think I have to say too much about here because it's pretty well known, but it's really great and it works with Remix really well. So this is an architecture diagram of, kind of how everything relates to each other and how the application actually works. So in the middle, you can see that I have my Remix app deployed on Fly. And the two other services, Supabase and Browserless, are only the Remix app deals with Supabase or Browserless. You can use Supabase from the client, but in this case, because I'm using Remix, I can just deal with all of that on my backend, and I don't have to worry about sending any of that code to the client to deal with that or anything, which is really nice. And another thing that's really nice about this architecture is I could deploy to any region in Fly. I could deploy anywhere in the world. I could have multiple instances, and it would all still work because it doesn't really matter where I'm connecting from or where the server is hosted. It would all still work regardless. So that's another really cool thing I like about this. And then finally, we have the client, which is me, the browser. And there's kind of two main endpoints that we care about here. The first is just to get the dashboard page, which is just the index. Actually, I think that name is wrong. I think I just called it dashboard to make it clear, but the index page is the dashboard. And then the other endpoint is a post to initiate a request, or it's a request to do the actual scraping. So, it'll take 20, 30 seconds. And then when the request actually returns a status code, you know that the scraping is done, the data has been saved to the database, and then it will redirect you back to the dashboard. So before I get too much into the code or architecture, I just want to show you what this actually looks like. So this is a screenshot of it that I took today. And you can see it has a whole bunch of stats. It has, the last time that I got new information. It shows me the current level. It shows me my current rate of consumption that I have, that I've been using recently. And crucially for me, it kind of tells me how long I have left of heat to make sure that things don't get too dire. And then also something that I really wanted was this chart to kind of give me some historical context for, when was the last time that I had a gas fill up, how is my consumption changing over time and so on. So, and there's also, not pictured here, but there's a table that has all of this in a nice, more condensed format as well. So to show you how this actually works, I just recorded a quick video of me actually using the application, fairly straightforward. So there's just this one refresh button that you click, and that will start the request. So you click that, and hopefully you can see at the top, there's this nice little loading indicator, and there's a little loading icon to the right, which is really easy to implement with Remix. And when that's done, the page updates, and now I have the new information. So fairly straightforward. Just click the button, it scrapes the data, gets the new data, and refreshes. Well, it doesn't refresh the page. It refetches the data and re-renders. Okay, and I just wanted to briefly mention, because I've had a couple of people ask, like, how does this actually help me? How does this save me money at all? And it's hard to put an exact number on it, but the way that I use it is it helps me to kind of know, you know, if I'm running low on gas, do I need to like change the temperature that I'm running at to kind of preserve that, or kind of tells me like, okay, if I turn it down a couple degrees, how much gas usage does that save me? And then I think also important to note is like, it just lets me know how my heating bill is changing, and also gives me a sense of urgency that like, hey, I'm using a lot of money this month, so I need to be careful and I need to be aware of that. So, I think when you visualize things, it makes it easier to process and make decisions. Okay, so now that you know what the application looks like, I want to dive into how it actually works with Remix. And we'll kind of go, this isn't a tutorial, but we'll just kind of go chronologically through actually initiating the request, and then some of the scraping code, and then a little bit of the rendering code. And of course, we'll start with requesting the fetch to go scrape all the data. And I just want to like emphasize here, and just to sort of marvel that this is all of the code that I have for making the request to do the scraping. So, normally you would use like, await fetch and then call, dot then, and do something with the response and all that, or maybe you use React query. But in Remix, I think one thing that you kind of have to change your mindset a little bit is that like forms are not just for really complex data entry, but they're just for any kind of mutation that you have. So even if it's just a mutation where you're just firing off a request and you don't even really do anything with that data, and it's just as simple as a button like it is here, that's still a mutation, and that can still be modeled with the form. And what's really great about that is, you get a lot of implicit behavior that you could kind of see in that video. So, I get nice loading states from Remix, really easy to set up those. You also get automatic cache invalidation and automatic race condition handling and all of that. So I just think that's really awesome. And I think technically here, I don't even need to use the method or the action, but whatever. I was trying to be explicit. So if you're interested in learning more about this stuff, definitely go check out the Remix singles that Ryan's been putting out on the Remix YouTube channel. Okay, so I just kind of want to give you, again, a brief overview. I've simplified the code here a little bit, the scraping code. Not too much, but just removed some of the like boilerplatey try, catch, and error conditions. But this really is basically just the code that I'm using. So you can see here, I just have this config that gets the username and password that I want to log in with. Something that I think is really great about Remix too is that it makes it really easy to use secrets. So, in this application, I have like 4 or 5 different secrets, which are like the browserless API key, the username and password, and all the stuff to connect to Supabase. And, I don't have to worry about sending any of that kind of stuff to the client, because all this just gets split out. And so this only runs on the server, which is awesome. And then also just want to point out here, it's really simple to use the browserless service. So you call await Puppeteer connect, and that makes that remote connection to some Chrome instance somewhere else. And then after that point, you don't have to worry about it. You can just write it like it's running locally, which is actually what I did just for the first initial version of this. I just had a Node.js script that I would run repeatedly. And then when I was ready to go, I just copy pasted it in Remix, and it all worked out. So speaking of Puppeteer and scraping, just want to give you some context of what the website here actually looks like. So it's not just, just code. So like I explained before, this is all of the information that I'm getting for, this is all I'm getting from my gas provider. So they basically just tell me, hey, here's when we delivered the thing, and here's how much is currently in your tank. So there's no historical information. There's not even much precision in the percentage. So, there's only 100 different percentages that you could have there. So something that's really nice about actually recording this data over time is that you can get kind of sub percentage accuracy, because if I'm measuring it over time, I can compute the average, which helps me calculate that more accurately. So to actually scrape this, I've just got some normal Puppeteer code. There's really not too much special here. You could copy this from the documentation. I'm basically going to the login page, and then once the login page is, I've logged in and everything, I'm going to the tank page that I just showed you there, this page, and I'm looking for that progress bar and getting the current progress value off of it and saving those to some variables. And then after I've done all of that, we have all the information that we need. I'm doing some calculations that I've skipped over to basically figure out how much gas is in the tank and current rate of consumption and some of that stuff. And I'm using the Supabase SDK here. So again, you could find some of these examples in the documentation. There isn't really much modification you have to make to use any of this. And after we're done inserting the data, I just redirect back to the dashboard. So regardless of how this request was initiated, you'll end up back on the dashboard with fresh data. So just something I wanted to highlight here, something that I think is cool is, none of this is too complicated. First of all, there's no hacky workarounds that I had to do or anything. And the ability to combine all of this into my backend, not have to deploy the scraping as like a second app or anything. It just sits right next to my front end code and allows me to provide like a world-class UX for that. So I just think that it was really neat that this worked, because I wasn't sure when I started it if it was going to work or not, but it did. Okay, so speaking of loaders, if you remember from earlier, I had this chart that showed me all the historical data. And this chart is being generated with D3. And I'm doing that on the server side primarily. So, even if you didn't have JavaScript enabled or anything, that's fine. You could still load this chart and get all the data. You could use the application. It would work just fine. If, I decided that I didn't want to have JavaScript on this page at all, I could totally do that. And then I wouldn't have to ship all this JavaScript, and that would be like a huge performance win. In my case, it didn't really matter. That wasn't a big concern for me. But, if I want additional interactivity, I render it on the server side and then hydrate it. And now I have all this additional interactivity. So it's just kind of like progressive enhancement in action, which is awesome. So I love it. And I'm not going to like try to walk you through all the code that does that, because again, it's pretty standard. But I will point you to this article that I referred to by Amelia Wattenberger, and it just describes how to use React and D3.js together in a way that works beautifully, and it works really well with Remix as well. So it's a fantastic article. I highly recommend it if you're interested in making highly interactive charts with React. Okay, so this is what I'm calling the Remix is awesome slide, because I just had a number of things I just really wanted to like list out, reasons why I think Remix is really cool, particularly as it pertains to this project. A lot of these things I didn't really have to think about too much. It just kind of happened because Remix is handling it for me. So I mentioned earlier, one thing that's really great about using Remix and using the form abstractions and everything that Remix gives you is you basically get automatic cache invalidation. So every time you post a form and that request comes back, all of the loaders will refetch and your page will re-render. And so you don't, that just removes an entire group of concerns that normally, let's say if you're building like a single page app, and you're using like React query or something, right? You have to make that request, and then when it comes back, you have to check if it was successful. And if it was successful, then you have to invalidate the cache, and you got to find the cache key and all this stuff that just goes away if you're using Remix. So you don't have to worry about it. And then related to that is also automatic race condition handling. So if I have multiple requests in flight, I don't need to worry about that. It'll automatically get canceled. If I accidentally click that button multiple times, all those requests would get canceled. It would handle all the caching and everything. And a lot of frameworks don't really handle this at all. A lot of applications don't. So it's great that it's handled by Remix and I don't have to think about it. And then another thing, another reason why Remix is awesome is progressive enhancement. And, a lot of people, I think, kind of feel that like progressive enhancement is like this fictional benefit. It's like, well, no one's really out there, without JavaScript. But, funny story about this one. So I was working on this app while I was riding a bus to New York. And in order to get data on my laptop, I was hotspotting data from my phone. And to make things even worse, I was also going through the Lincoln Tunnel into New York. So I was basically underground on my laptop, hotspotting data from my phone over 3G, which is not a very good connectivity scenario. But despite all of that, it didn't really matter if requests were slow or if the JavaScript bundles didn't load, because as soon as I had the HTML, that was it. The charts would load, the button that I need to make the request would load. All of that was just kind of built in with how the web works. And then as the JavaScript loads, it adds additional functionality on top of that. So, I'm not just trying to build apps for people that have like MacBook Pros with gigabit internet. I'm trying to build apps for people with old laptops that are hotspotting data on a bus. So I think that's really something awesome about Remix, that again, you don't have to think about too much as long as you're using the abstractions that Remix gives you, the web gives you, frankly. You just kind of get that for free. And then I didn't touch on this too much, but you saw earlier, while I was making that request, there was this like cool loading indicator that showed up and everything. And, that's definitely something that's possible with other frameworks, but I find it is much easier with Remix to build optimistic UI or just simply pending UI. I definitely recommend, like, if you're looking for a quick, easy win, just go add like some global loading state to your app, because it's really cool to like click buttons and see that requests are happening, and and to still be able to use the app.
Cameron, sorry to disturb. Could you please go fast?
Yeah. I'm almost done. Sorry. And then so the last two things are, Remix makes it really easy to deploy to basically any host like Vercel, Netlify, etc. And then conversely, additionally, that also makes it really easy to deploy anywhere in the globe. So as you can probably tell, this isn't really a talk about how to save money on your heating bill. I'm sorry if that's what you were expecting. This is really just about how it's great to build web apps right now. There's a lot of great services like Supabase, Browserless, etc. There's lots of new tools in JavaScript development, I think now more than ever. And there's so many options for hosting that are free or at least affordable, that give you like free domain names and tons of free bandwidth and all that. And they're also super fast. And then also, of course, we live in the time of Remix. If you're considering Remix, you should definitely try it. And while you're at it, check out some of these cloud services, some of these other hosts, and go build something cool. So that's all I had for today. Go build some awesome Remix apps, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, Cameron. We will take the question answer in the end. Okay, yeah, Arvind, go ahead. Your voice is very low.
Is it better now?
Not for me. Cameron, is it fine for you? Could you please?
It is a bit low.
Okay.
I think you need to just increase the volume of your system or your Zoom.
Is it better now?
It's better now. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, shall I start then?
Yeah, you can start.
Sorry, how do I share my screen?
There is one button, share screen, from the left second option. Near the chat button or participant.
I don't have. No, I cannot see that option. Should you enable it for me, or?
I think
it's enabled.
Bala, could you please?
Yeah,
It's enabled for everyone.
Yeah, it's enabled for you. You should see in the chat on the bottom of your Zoom call. You should see in the middle share screen, the green button.
Yeah, got it. Sorry. Yeah, is my screen visible? Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. All right. So just a quick introduction about me again. My name is Aravindh, and I'm a full stack developer. I'm currently working as a tech lead at a startup called Anthem. I apologize in advance. My presentation will not be as detailed as Cam's was because I didn't have enough time to work on it. But anyway, I've done my best. So I'll be talking about resource routes, as you know. And the reason why I decided to talk about resource routes is that the philosophy behind Remix is that for every route that you want, you create a file in the routes folder, right? So the files inside the routes folder map directly to the UI routes that you have. So that raises a concern naturally, like among people. What if I don't want a UI route? What do I do then? What if I just want to hit an API and get the data? Or what if I just want to hit an API to delete something? I don't really want to navigate the user to a different route. So that's a natural concern that some developers might have, especially if you're coming from a single page application background. For example, if you're working with React, you might be used to having a lot of API calls in the same route using on click, on change, etc. So that is the reason I decided to talk about resource routes. Also, I'll be talking about uh, when you should use resource routes and when you should not use resource routes, because as the remix documentation suggests rightly, a lot of things can be achieved with just loaders and normal forms, as in remix forms. So the usage of resource routes should also be limited to only situations that actually warrant it. So to start with, I've created like a dummy application. Uh, so we have this free API called Fake Store API. I'll just take you through the application that I've built so far. So this Fake Store API, what it does, just a minute. Right, so this Fake Store API, it gives a list of products in a JSON format. So I've just fetched the list of products from this API, and I've displayed the products over here. So I don't have an index route. This product route is my landing route. I display the list of products here. Now, talking about resource routes, you might want to have an option where you can download a PDF for an Excel in your application, right? So for that case, you might not you won't have to redirect to a new route. So, for example, we have an option here to download this data as an Excel file, as a spreadsheet file. But this there is no need for redirecting the user and showing a different UI here. We just have to make an API call here, and then the file has to get downloaded, right? So this is where a resource route comes in. So if you look at the network tab, when I click on download a spreadsheet, like you cannot see any request being made here, uh, because I'll show you the code just a minute. Yeah, so as you can see here, this is the route that I have for the download. So when you click on this download button, I'm making an API call to this route, right? This download a spreadsheet is nothing but a link pointing to this route spreadsheet. And this route is what I have here inside routes. And this does not have a default export. So when you have a default export, that's a UI component. But when you don't have a default export and you have only a loader or an action, that's a resource route, meaning there's no UI associated with the route. There is only like a resource fetching or resource adding happening. So in this case, I just have a loader function which reads the Excel file from the path that I've given, and it responds with the Excel file. So what happens when I click the link? Uh, this API is hit, and this reload document. This is something important that you have to pay attention to. If we do not have this prop reload document, Remix understands that this route is a UI route, and it will try to look for a default export from the spreadsheet route. But we don't have a default export here, right? So in that case, we'll get an error. So let me remove this reload document prop and show you what happens. I think I may have to stop and run again. Uh,
Just change the route from product to spreadsheet. If you see the route, yeah.
okay, got it. Yeah,
Just change the route.
yeah. I did not notice that. Thanks, Anuj. So yeah, the route gets changed, and then I see the like I get the file download pop-up. The route is changing because I haven't given the reload document prop. So Remix understands that this is a UI route, and it pushes a new route onto the stack. And so we see spreadsheet here, and then the file download pops up. But that is not what we want, because this is not a UI route. Right. So now there is no attempt by Remix to change the UI or to recall any loaders. The only action that's happening is that we are fetching this Excel file with a resource route. So this is one of the most common use cases for a resource route, where you just want to fetch a file, be it any format, PDF or Excel or a CSS file. And one more use case that I can think of is, there might be scenarios where you have to fetch some data based on certain actions. For example, if a user is filling out a form and the form has details about address, so the user might have to select their city, and based on the city, uh, the user might be presented with different districts, but it might not be feasible to fetch all the cities and districts at the like at the beginning, and then do a local filtering, because if the data is huge, that might affect the performance. So whenever the city changes, we might have to fetch the districts pertaining to that city, and that is also one more scenario where resource routes come in handy. Like, I don't have that exact scenario to show you right now, but I have a very basic example. So search product by categories. So what this means is that there are certain categories such as jewelry, like clothing, associated with these products. And when I click on this, I'm fetching the list of categories and displaying this. Now, this might be a very stupid example because I only have 4 categories, and this is not a expensive API call at all. But if it's an expensive API call, then this is something that you can do. So for example, when I hit search product by categories, again, there is no attempt by Remix to navigate to a new route or a nested route. All that happens is that a resource route is called and it fetches the categories, and the categories are displayed here. So if we look at the code for this, all right, so before looking at this, we saw that this was just a link, right? This was just a link to the spreadsheet resource route. Uh, but for this case, we had done like a transition thing. So when I hit the resource route, I inform the user that we are loading the categories, and then we are displaying the categories. So for this case, we can use the use fetcher hook. Right. So as you can see here, uh, this component has the use fetcher hook. The use fetcher is similar to use fetch. It also gives additional information like, is the request being submitted? Is the request in progress? So it also gives us information about the transition status, so we can show loaders if we want. So in this case, I've used the use fetcher hook, and the use fetcher hook gives us a form. So I've used the form here, and the form has this button that you see here, search product by categories. And so when you hit the button, we are calling a resource route, right? But how does Remix know which resource route to call? That is where the action of the form comes in. Just like in a normal form, this use fetchers form can also have an action. And when this form is submitted, in other words, when this button is clicked and the form is submitted, so the categories resource route would be called. And the corresponding file for this resource route is here, routes, and then inside routes we have categories, right? And again, if you look at categories here, there is no default export, there is no component being rendered, there is just a loader function which returns a list of categories, right? And once the form is submitted and once the API call is triggered, uh, the the fetcher object has a submission property, and we can like determine from the submission property that the API request is in progress. And if it's in progress, we like I'm showing a message to the users that we are loading the categories. And if it's not like if the transition status is not in submission, then we are checking if the like if we have received some data from the API. So like 1 minute. Right. So you must be familiar with use loader data. Use loader data provides us with the data that is returned by the loader, right? So whatever is returned by this loader, uh, we have access to that using the use loader data. In a similar way, whatever is returned by this resource route is made accessible to us by this data property in this fetcher object. So this data property has the list of categories, and we are checking if there is a data object present, and if it is present, then we display the list of categories here. So like I said, this might be a very stupid example, but for real world applications where you have very computationally expensive API calls, you can make use of this. So here I have a form, right? And here I have a button. So when I click on the button, the form naturally gets submitted. But there might be scenarios where you cannot have a button and you cannot have a form. You may so in the example about cities and districts, which I told you sometime back, you might have drop downs for cities, and you might also have drop downs for districts, right? So when you select a particular city from the drop down, you may have to trigger another API call to fetch the districts for that city. So in that case, it might not be feasible to have a button because the resource route has to be fetched when the value of the dropdown changes, right? So there comes this method called submit. So this fetcher object also has a method called submit, which can be used to programmatically call the resource route. So instead of having a form here, I can remove this form altogether. I can have just a button, or this can be any HTML element. It doesn't matter. When the button is clicked, I so will be my body.
Hello.
And yeah, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I think there was some voice issue. Go ahead.
Okay, am I audible now?
No, you are audible.
Okay, I'll just quickly repeat what I was saying. So we had this form earlier, but it may not be feasible to have a form all the time. So if that is not something that's feasible, you can just get rid of the form. You can have just the HTML element that you want, which should trigger the resource route. And you can have an event handler on the HTML element. So here I have an event handler, and inside this function, I call the submit method of the fetcher object, right? And that submit method, uh, like we can specify the request body. So since this is a get API, there is no need for a request body. So it's an empty object, and the method is get. And here we specify the route, right? So similar to how we had specified the action route here, we specify the route here in this way, action categories. So this will do exactly the same thing. When the button is clicked, this categories resource route would be called. Uh,
Are you done?
no. I was just
Okay,
waiting
okay.
for my page to load.
Okay.
You can hear me, right? Not sure if there's
Yeah,
an
yeah.
issue with me. Yeah.
No. Everything is fine.
Okay. Right. So as you saw here, we got rid of the form that we had, and we made use of the submit method provided by the fetcher object, and that did exactly the same thing. I hit the button, search product, and this resource route was fetched, and we display this here. So like these are two broad use cases of resource routes. And I also want to talk about one more scenario where you might be tempted to use resource routes, but there is a better approach. So for example, I've seen a lot of design patterns where you see a list of items, and when you click on an item, the item is displayed in a modal or in a pop-up, right? And the same thing can be said for adding a new item or updating a new item. So I've seen a lot of user interfaces where people have add new item buttons, and when you click on that, a modal pops up with a form. And typically how you would manage that is that you would have a Boolean state, right? So is the form visible? Yes or no. So you might have a Boolean state for that in React. For example, show a model true or false. And when the button is clicked, you might change the Boolean to true and render the model. So in that way, you toggle the visibility of the model on or off. That is a very common pattern that I've seen in many applications. Again, you might be tempted to use a resource route for this case. So let me click on this product too. I'm sorry, I think there is some delay with the API response. I've actually clicked on the I've actually clicked on the product, but I haven't received the response yet. Let's wait for just a minute. Okay, are you able to see the? Are you able to see this model? Okay, cool. So what I did here is that earlier we were in the product route, right? Earlier the route was just /product. And now we've navigated to the product/to route, and that to is nothing but the ID of this specific product. So what we've done here is that we've essentially removed the usage of the Boolean true or false for toggling the visibility of the model. We simply have to have a nested route. So I'll show you the code quickly. Right. So so this box that you see here, right? So this box that you see for every product here, that is represented by this component, and we have a link to the ID of the product. So this is a nested route here. Nested route meaning we append we append to the already existing route, right? So the /product is a route, and /product/ the ID of the product is a nested route. So when we hit the nested route, which is represented by this slug, so if the ID of the product is 1 or 2, for example, then this route comes into action, and we get the information about that specific product, and we show the model here. So essentially, we've removed the need for managing a state true or false and then showing the model. We can, this product details component, all it does is it has a model. That's it. So it shows a model always, and when you navigate to that nested route, you see the model as you see here. So this is one use case where you might be tempted to think that resource routes is the solution, but there is a better approach, as you can see here. The same thing can be used for adding a new item or updating a new item. You don't have to manage a Boolean state and toggle on or off. You just have to have a nested route, and you can have a normal loader and action as well if required for a form. I think that would be it from my side. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah, thanks, Arvind, for your topic, and thanks, Cam. Anybody have any question?
Yeah, hi. I have one question. I guess Cam will be able to answer it. So let's say, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So let's say we have a table with few rows, and there is this button to delete a row. So as we just use forms for all sort of mutation, so how the deletion case would be handled? I'm new to Remix. Just pardon if that's something very basic. So yeah.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding what you're saying, right? So like if you had a table with each row had a button, had like an action associated with it, how would you handle that mutation with just forms, basically?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, great question. I would probably just direct you to, I think Ryan from the Remix team, I think he just did like a short video on use fetcher that kind of shows basically how to implement multiple pending, multiple error states. So that's probably how I would handle it, is use actually, as we were just seeing with the resource routes, I just learned that there's a fetcher.form. So you could still use forms for that as well.
Okay, so that programmatic method that Aravindh showed, we can use that.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah, there's a
is that the
programmatic
way
method.
Ryan showed in the video, or it's a different?
Yeah, Ryan has explained in the video. You can check the YouTube and just
Yeah, I'll see if I can find a link to it and post it.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's a good watch.
Okay, one more question, Arvind. Okay, so can we use the resource router as an alternative to REST APIs? Let's say I'm building a mobile application parallel to my web app. I might be needing REST APIs for that. So is it a good idea to use the resource router as an REST API? Or should I make a separate backend?
Can you use a Remix backend for a mobile app?
Yeah, that's basically the question. Not exactly, basically, resource routes are the routes that will provide us the data, right? That's what I understood from the resource route.
I think normal routes also provide data. Sorry, I'm not an expert in Remix yet. I've just started, but as per my understanding, maybe Cam can step in here. But as per my understanding, a normal route would also provide you data if you call the API. So in case of a mobile, all you need is a response. So you don't have to worry about your UI, because the UI is separate in your mobile app. All you need is a response. So you can call a resource route or you can call a normal route. It doesn't matter.
Normal route will provide you the UI, the HTML. I need the JSON. So how that would work?
Okay. In that case, yes, you can go with the resource route, because a resource route does not have to provide HTML. It can provide only JSON. Yeah. Resource routes will be helpful there. Correct.
Okay. Is it the way to go, or is there any other approach? Maybe.
I'm frankly not experienced enough to answer that question.
Okay.
Any idea, Cam?
Yeah, I mean, I think, at least from my understanding of resource routes, that's basically like in a lot of other frameworks, that's what you would call like API routes, right? Like, but it's called resource routes because it doesn't just have to return JSON. It could return like a spreadsheet or a CSV file or an image. Actually, I have an article on like how you can use resource routes to generate images for like social share links and stuff. So yeah, you could build an API with resource routes and then have a UI that uses the same API to build the website. And then for your mobile app, you just connect to the API.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
thanks, Karthik. Anybody have any question? I think silent as no. Yeah. So Arvind and Cam, could you please post your article link and code in the Remix event comment section. So if anybody want to see it, they can easily see it.
Yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Yeah,
Cool.
well, I'll post something up there.
Cool. And I think we are good. Yeah, apart from this, there will be one remix conference. It will be on May 24th, 25th. So yeah, you guys, if you want, you can just purchase a ticket and just take a look about all the details. So they have their own one full details they have explained. I just put you in the chat. Give me a moment. If you guys want, you can just take a look and just purchase the ticket. And apart from this, if you would like to speak on next event, just fill the form so that we will try to schedule on the next meetup. Hopefully that's it. Yeah, so thanks all for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you,
a lot.
guys. Thanks for the opportunity.
Guys, if you want to speak more, just fill the form or let me know directly, so that we will like meet up. We will add you as a speaker on the next meetup, because currently I don't have any speaker for the next one. So it would be good, like if anybody would interested. Okay, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.